Welcome to this video. This is my 2023 Honda Grom. It is brand new and I've put some mods on it and I'm about to do the exhaust, but I thought I'd do a quick comparison sound video between the stock Honda Grom exhaust and what is going on it, which is this Scorpion red slip-on exhaust. So here's the pipe, here's a couple of other bits to mount it. Now, installing the new slip-on exhaust should be as simple as undoing this bolt here and on the underside undoing this bolt here. This bracket here we don't touch because we're not replacing the head tube, so it should just be one bolt, two bolt, take off the old system. Maybe we'll do a cheeky fire up without the muffler as well, just for a laugh, but then we can attach a new one and then we'll do the sound comparison. So to start off the process, we're going to undo this one here, which is with a 12mm bolt. So get our ratchet on there and we'll start to undo that. Just work its way off nice and easy. We'll start off a bit. Start that off, keep going that, sorry. Got a bit stiffer before it got a bit looser, but no, lefty loosey as always. And with that coming loose, we're just going to leave that loosened for the second. So with that loosened off, we can then start undoing this one here. So we'll need a spanner on the back and the ratchet on the front. So hopefully it's the same 12mm on the front, and we'll get one for the back as well. Now, while I'm doing this, because this is really quite boring, what I also want to go through is why I picked this exhaust. So I'm now going to cut to Computer Matt, who is going to take you through a bit of a comparison guide between all the exhausts that I looked at. When I was looking at different exhausts to put on my Honda Grom, the first one I really liked was the Zoom Brute, and this was because of its clean looks without having to have the big back box sitting alongside the swing arm. I thought that looked really neat, so that was the first one that I started looking at originally. In addition to that, there was lots of talk around these Yoshiyama ones, and I believe, you know, looking at the research, these are probably some of it's like the top level exhausts you can get. But there's a price to be paid with those at $550 for a slip-on and $750 for a full system. Now, one thing to bear in mind, I'm a bit of a goody two-shoes, and I didn't want to put something on my first bike that was downright illegal. Well, not downright illegal, but, you know, potentially could get me in trouble in the law. So when I started looking at the systems, I didn't want to have a system that was advertised as race only. So the Zoom Brute does seem to be advertised as race only. I couldn't determine whether that would have a race only stamp on it, and I wasn't too sure about that. The Leovince LV10 is branded as a race exhaust, and the full Yoshimura system, sorry if I said that wrong, is also branded as race only. So for me, these three here were off the cards. The other thing I didn't like about the Zoom and the Leovince was no visible baffles. Now the Leovince does have two baffles that sit within the pipe, one on the pretty much near the cylinder head, and then one near the muffler in the middle of the exhaust, but actually at the end of the exhaust there's no visible baffle that can be removed or replaced. And the Leovince doesn't, as far as I'm aware, have any baffles, but if I am wrong, please tell me. But from what I could see, I didn't believe it had any baffles. Now, another consideration was its emission compliance. So being a 23 Grom, it's Euro 5 standard. It has got, I don't know if it is a catalytic converter in the pipe in the bigger section in the middle underneath. Someone please tell me. But what I want to do is make sure that the exhaust was still emissions compliant. So when I was looking at the different systems, basically the only way seemingly to do that was to have a slip-on. So when I took everything into account, the only real contenders for me was the Scorpion slip-on, the Yoshiyama slip-on, and the Akrapovic slip-on exhausts. But as you can see from the price, we've got 329, and then we're talking kind of in the £500 brackets, and I couldn't really work out, apart from a brand name, what more I was getting. I liked the look of the Scorpion, so that's what I decided to go with. It's also worth noting I did look at some of like the Amazon exhausts that I've seen people talk about and some people rave about, but I kind of wanted to go with a reputable name. Zoom was a bit of an unknown one. Something else to note with the Zoom, at least here in the UK, I couldn't find a company selling it in the UK, so it was coming in from the US, in which it was about 250 quid on eBay, but in dollars, and then there was going to have to be import tax on top of that. So I've put it as £300-ish, where the Scorpion I could get is from the UK, in the UK, at that price. The Leo Vince was that bit cheaper, but as I said, it doesn't have wasn't sure about the baffles of the emission compliance, and it's marked as race only. So the other thing to note about both the Scorpion, the Leo Vince, and the Akrapovic, I'm not so sure about the Yoshiron, but I'm sure not the Zoom Brute, is that the Scorpion and the Akrapovic systems and Leo Vince do all have at least some sort of like sports heritage in their brand name, which I wasn't so sure about the Yoshimura ones, but I think they are. But the Zoom Brute and obviously kind of your Amazon Basics exhausts don't have kind of any race heritage. So that was something that came into my decision of thinking about the Scorpion. Ta-da! With that removed, we can go on to the fun bit. Let's fire up without the exhaust for a giggle. Bit more throaty. Way more throaty. Definitely would get pulled over for that. So now looking at the exhaust pipe here, where we're going to now put on the slip-on exhaust, what we first need to do is add the gasket, this little pipe here, onto here. This is going to convert it for the bigger slip-on tube, so we're going to slip that on here, push that right on, so as far as it goes, give that a good push. There's a slight lip on here, so we want to get that the whole way on. That's pretty much there. I want it to be on as far as it can go. That is as damn right fullest as it can go. I will slightly unprofessionally just give it a little, being careful not to hit my bike, a slight little mush with a hammer. Maybe it's ruffled up the edge, but that's not going to matter for a second. Be careful with the hammer, FYI. What we're then going to do, we've got our new collar, so obviously we want to have that, and we've got obviously our new corner pipe to angle the exhaust around to attach onto the back box. So I'm going to pull this out. That slips over there, that is snug as a bug in a rug. So what we want to do with, now we've got the gasket on there, is take this clip, put it over the edge here, this thread here is going to go over there, put this onto here, like so. I'm going to put this clip facing down so I've got plenty of clearance, and we're now going to slide that over there, so that's all on there nice and loosey-loosey. So for the installation of getting the muffler onto the bike, now we've got this pipe here installed. What we want is the newly supplied bolt with this kind of rubber cap spacer on it, this centimetre-ish spacer, the new washer and the new bolt. Now the order this goes on, because I very nearly got it wrong, and what you'll end up with is your exhaust smashing into your rear swing arm, is you want the bolt, so this bit here with this spacer on, then the exhaust, then the spacer, through the frame with the washer and the nut on the other side. So hopefully you can see that there. You can still see my hand up here, good. So what we're going to do is now take our exhaust, slip that onto the tube. We're going to put our bolt through there. Then I'm going to put the spacer here on the other side, so that distances the mount from the frame a bit. And then just gently manoeuvre this, line it all up loosely, so you've not done it at the bit below. That's now going through the frame, so your exhaust is going to be clear
of the rear swing arm, because if you get these two, the spacer and the exhaust mount the wrong way around, your shiny exhaust will crash into your shiny rear swing arm, and you don't want that. And then the washer goes on the other side, and the bolts. So we're now just going to do that up. So I need to go and get an Allen key quickly. That's about the right size. What is it? Supplied. So the H6 on the bolt. So I assume that's some sort of standard size. I'm pretty new to this mechanic stuff. Hopefully it's still a 12 on the back. Makes my life easier. No, it's not. It's a bigger. Maybe. So make it 14. It's not 14. I'll say 12. Still 12 on the back rather than 10. Nope. Must be a 14. Leave a 13. 13 spanner. Got to have 13 as we go. Put that on the back here, and we can start to do that up. Now this is a really cheap screwdriver that I want to see how bad they were from Lidl, and I'm just persisting on using it because all my others are a mess. But we all have to love a little middle deal thing. Shout out to Lidl for cheap tools that sort of do the job. So with that on, and I'm now gonna do that up using the spanner nice and tight. That is now the exhaust mounted on there, nice and firmly. With that in place, obviously your bit down here you can now come back to and do up. So I can't tell you what size that is off the top of my head. So back to the fun guessing game of guess the size of the bolt. Put down 10 and 12. 15 of these two. Now someone's going to tell me you need to torque this to a certain level. I'm going to torque it as tight as I feel. So with that installed, I've got the bolt facing down, so I've got easy access to that in the future. I've got the shim kind of, it's on the whole way around. Before I do that fully up, just going to double check around both sides to make sure the shim's on straight. So I'm doing that a little bit. So yeah, I've got a nice clear view of all of that. Now we can go back to tightening that up so it's nice and tight. Now, first impressions looking at the exhaust is it looks really nice, but before I'm going to start it up, I was reading a tip online about it's brushed aluminium. It's a monster for fingerprints, and I don't know if this is true, but apparently you can get funny little marks on like where you've handled it with oily skin. Now, I forgot to say that before I wash it down with soap and water, you have these springs. Last important step now. I assume these springs, you know, they stop the whole thing vibrating, they take some of the shock and energy out of the exhaust, stop the whole thing rattling itself to pieces. So what these need to do is, one hooks onto the exhaust at the top, and that needs to be stretched by hook or by crook down to the hook on the tailpipe down here. Now, that doesn't look very long, so I don't know how I do this. So what you're now going to see is a time lapse of me working out how to do the top one without damaging anything, and then I'll show you what I did for the second one. So yeah, and so got one on. So what I did, easiest way, well, I say easiest way, the first thing I thought of, and it worked for me, get a long thin like screwdriver for like a long fiddly screw, take the rubber end, put it on the back. So take your screw, I'll bring you in a bit closer, hook the screw in one end down here, hook it up like that. I want the screw facing up like that. Take the rubber end, face that towards the bike so the pointy end's pointing at you. There's probably some health and safety reason why you should do it the other way around, but you know, it worked for me last time. I can then use the shaft of the screw to stretch the spring, get the end back through the loop, pull the screwdriver out. that is now attached there. So back to go and get the washing up liquid. So I've got some soapy water, warm soapy water, fresh kitchen cloth. Put it back, the wife won't ever notice. Just give that a wipe. Now, still got the soapy bubbles on there, but we'll deal with that. But yeah, just to kind of wet the surface, get off dust, fingerprints that might have been touched. I don't want to cause any burn marks or anything like that. I don't know if that's a load of hocus pocus, but some of the installation videos I've seen for other exhausts suggest doing this, so it's not going to do any harm, is it? So there we go, that's nice and clean. So I think now we should look at doing a first fire up. So we're going to stand about here. We've got the ignition, turn the ignition on, bike's ready to go, second camera down there is running. Let's give this a whirl, see how much better it sounds. Now, on tick over, second camera down there is running. Let's give this a whirl, see how much better it sounds. So here's a quick sound clip comparing the two exhausts, both on fire up, idle and revving. Now, that to me sounded somewhat a lot better than the stock. There's a little bit of throatiness on idle. The standard stock muffler, if we go back to the original clip, just seems completely muted. It is louder, not hugely amount louder, but it's richer and it's crisper. Now, what I didn't want was an exhaust that's going to get me pulled over for being like it was without the muffler. That wasn't the intention of what I want. And that's obviously still got the stock baffle in. So it will annoy the neighbours a little bit more potentially than the stock one, but it's also not ridiculous. Not by comparison to what you can get, I believe. So, but I thought while I've got you quickly, I'd also just take you through a couple of the other little mods that I've done to the bike. I have got this tail tidy here installed. Really pleased with this. Just really neatens up the whole back end. It's got the non-standard tail light. So it's an LED, it's a white LED, but the standard indicators kind of with all the standard wiring. Little bit fiddly to install, and I meant to kind of make a video of me installing this, but I actually kind of gave up because the instructions that came with it weren't the best. Felt like there's a couple of steps missing, and I got more into the trying to work out how to install it than trying to make a video about it, and that was that. Now I've also got my rear L plate kind of mounted below the number plate there, stuck on there, which is really handy. Clears the wheel, don't think I'll have any coverage issues. And for the L plate, I've actually just used double-sided tape onto the bottom of the back of the number plate. When I get my full license on my number plates, I have got a personal plate that I will chuck on here. Although the number plate that came on this bike looks relatively personal to me, given my name. For my front L plate, obviously most people on a Grom put their front L plate as a sticker on the wheel arch. Wasn't a massive fan of that. Some people stick them onto the side of the fork there. Again, not a massive fan. And what I've done instead was bought this windscreen. Now this isn't the complete one, but I'll put a link in the description below to Jack 4 parts. It's got this nice little mounting bracket down here that mounts onto the back of the dash. Sorry for the poor light. So you take out the 2 screws that take off this dash cover. This screen comes blank. A couple of cans of spray paint, painted it white, stuck the L on it. Now this isn't the complete one because I trod on it, cracked the corner on this side, so it's a bit of a different shape standard. I'll pop a picture here. I've got another one coming, but that's not going to arrive till next week, and I want to get on the bike this weekend, so I just took a circular saw to both sides, symmetrically cut it, stuck on the L, and yes, the L has got a bit of a tight space at the top and the bottom. Before any naysayers say anything, but I think the visibility is better than it being on the wheel arch, and it's clear to road users, so don't think that's going to be too much of a trouble. And then the final other mod that I mentioned was the gear linkage. So down here we've got this gear linkage down here. So this is normally just a little black bar, no kind of bearings, and it wears on the 2 bits of gear linkage here. So this is a kit here that came from my friend Elliot at Arsenal Mechanic. It's 10 quid, and it's just got these 2 joints here, comes with all the bolts. You undo the Jubilee clips, pop out the old one. Let me see if I can find the old one quickly to show you what it's replacing. I'm thinking here. So this is the old part, sorry for the mess on the workbench. This is the proper damage. So what you have is inside these 2 rubber boots is this bit of metal, and this wears down and it also wears on the gear linkage. So as you can kind of see from the kit, that replaces it with kind of some proper hard wearing on, it looks like loose. That's because it's actually, designed to move. It's not actually wearing down on the metal brackets on the bike. Nice little incy-wincy upgrade there. So well happy with that. So yeah, I've got that. The tail tied at the back. Got my L plate mounting up here. In terms of other bits I've got on the bike, it's been kept in my garage, but I've got a disc lock for the disc, which can be alarmed. How did I pick it? For any new riders out there, I wasn't sure what to go for, so I knew I wanted a disc lock. I'm mostly going out for social riding. I'm not leaving it out on streets while I'm at work, etc. So I just went with one that reduced my insurance, that was recognised by an insurance company. Everyone will have their own differing opinions, but it charges over USB. You chuck a Allen key down there, pop that off, charge it. It can be alarmed if you have 1 click when you lock it. If you have 2 clicks when you lock it, that's not alarmed. It's pretty sensitive, as you'll see from this outtake of the startup video. It got set off by me starting up the bike with it on, without the bike even moving. I have even actually had it go off with me stepping too close to the bike before, when I've just been working around the garage. For now, that's all the mods on my Grom. So yeah, thank you very much.